Hey guys, T-Bull here. Today we're going to be talking about smokescreens in the world of Warships Legends. Kind of going over all aspects of them. To do that, we'll look at a match of the Icarus, the Tier 5 British destroyer, on the map Shards in a domination game mode. Now here we're making a typical destroyer opening move here, getting on the cap, contesting it, and then also trying to scout the forward positions of the enemy. Now that battleship dropped off he's not visible anymore, but that's who this torpedo salvo is intended for. Once the torpedoes are down, we stop, we deploy the smoke, and we're going to try and take out this enemy destroyer. Now you can see we've dropped off the detection. You see the detected icon disappeared from the center of the screen. That's because the smoke is blocking the line of sight of this guy. Now we're able to fire freely and deal some damage. There the detection icon pops up again. That's because he's closing in on us. He's within the 2-kilometer auto detect range that you have on your ship. So keep that in mind. That's one way to counter smoke, is to close in on where you suspect the player is using the smoke from and get them in your auto detect range. And you can see that New York is able to dodge the torpedoes right when they get towards them. They kind of fizzle out because of they're on the edge of their range. But that's alright. It was a good opening play. We killed the enemy destroyer, cleared all the ships that were contesting the cap, and were able to capture. And as we capture, we're able to take a second and kind of evaluate what to do next. So how does smoke work? We jumped right into the gameplay before I could really explain it. Smoke creates an obstacle for the line of sight, so it basically blocks the line of sight. It's kind of like putting a portable mini island onto the map whenever you want. So that prevents you from being detected and, basically obscures the ability of the enemy to see you. Now, if you haven't seen my video on the vision game, I would recommend watching that. It goes into the vision a lot more in depth. We're not going to get too far into that in this video. Now here we're approaching the Texas, and you'll see I'm not going to use the smoke right off the bat. Why is that? My rule of thumb is use the smoke when you're detected. Don't use it when you're not detected. So here I'm putting down torpedoes, right? If I put a bunch of smoke down, he's going to know there's a destroyer in the area, and then he's going to think, oh, there's probably torpedoes coming my way, I better do something about it. Change speed, change course, try and avoid the torpedoes. Now that we got the rule of thumb established, let's go ahead and violate it. So we're going to park, deploy the smoke, and start firing. Now why is that? Because the torpedoes are about halfway there. This is a common play to make as a destroyer. I don't know if it's common yet, but it should be. It's a very effective play. What I'm trying to do is set him on fire. If he catches fire and puts it out, then he burns his damage control party. So you can see he put the fire out there, burned the damage control party. Now he was luckily able, from his perspective, to avoid those torpedoes. But had they hit him and sprung a leak, they caused a flood on his ship, and he burned that damage control party, he's in serious trouble. That's the play you want to make. You want to set him on fire, get him to use the damage control party, and then hit the torpedoes. So once those torpedoes were about halfway there, and I thought he would have a hard time avoiding them, well, that's when I deployed the smoke and started shooting. Alright, and now we got this cruiser here approaching us. Cruisers are the #1 threat to destroyers, so I have to turn my attention to him. He presents a broadside to me, which allows me to switch to AP. Close range cruisers, blast them with the AP. If they're giving you the broadside, you're going to rack up citadels like that and take them out really quickly. So we got rid of him. Our teammates are taking out that Texas, so we're kind of able to reevaluate the situation. Now each nation's smoke plays differently from each other, so you're going to want to kind of learn how each nation's smoke plays and use that accordingly. Like the British, they have a large number of charges. It's fairly short duration smoke, but the reload time is also very short, so by the time your smoke that you've played dissipates, the next charge is about available to use. So it's a very smoke reliant style of gameplay, but it's very fun. But keep that in mind. Now here's another instance where we're not going to use smoke right off the bat. And again, it's because I'm intending to torpedo this guy. I don't want to alert him to the fact that I'm here, so I'm not going to give him any clues. I'm keeping an eye on my blue detection radius on my map, and once we get in range of those torpedoes, we're going to get him on the water and make sure he doesn't detect us. If I put smoke down here, which I do see a lot of players using smoke when they don't need to, i.e. when they're not detected, that allows this guy to change course, change speed, and avoid these torpedoes more. So I'm just keeping an eye on him, making sure I'm not detected by turning around and sailing away from him. And again, I'm watching those torpedoes approach, and once he gets close, we're going to pop the smoke and start shooting. But as I'm watching him, I see him kind of turning his ship there, and I'm thinking, alright, he's going to miss those. So I'm going to take a shot. I did want to reset the cap, and I was about to sail out of a line of sight on him, so I figured I'd take a shot at him while I had the chance. The intention being I'm going to sail up here around the island and then pop the smoke now and start shooting at him. Luckily for me, these torpedoes end up connecting, so we didn't have to use the smoke in that instance. But that was my intention, was to re-establish line of sight with them, park, pop the smoke, and then put as much damage into them as I can while the smoke lasts. So, pretty good start to the match there. How you use smoke is going to depend on which nation you're playing. The Japanese, for instance, they're very stealthy and reliant on their torpedoes, so they're not going to be using the smoke in an offensive capacity very often. Why is that? Again, because if you're using the smoke, that indicates there's a destroyer near. If there's a destroyer near you, you should be changing your course and your speed, so any torpedoes that are potentially in the water will miss. So Japanese, we don't want them to know that we're near them, so we're not going to be putting smoke down. When do you use smoke as a Japanese player? When you're detected, you put it down to disengage from that fight, run away, drop off their field of view, and then once they've kind of forgotten about you, that's when you start closing in again and resuming your stealth attack. American British destroyers, their guns are much more effective, so they're going to be incorporating them, the smokes, in a much more offensive manner, like you'll see throughout this video, kind of parking and shooting from a smoke cloud. You can also use smoke in protection of your teammates. If you see someone's getting shot at by one or more players, you can put some smoke down in front of them. That'll allow them to drop off from the enemy and help them get out of the situation. Now here, initially I wasn't going to use smoke, but then the play developed, I was detected. That's when I popped the smoke and parked and began shooting. Now initially I was hoping my teammate would sight this guy and I could launch torpedoes before we saw each other, but that didn't end up happening, so I put him down just to get him in the water because of what happened, potentially happening, which was him not turning soon enough to avoid those. But I wasn't counting on those torpedoes to hit. I was mostly just planning on parking in a cloud and firing some high explosive rounds at him and getting some damage. So he reacted a little too late to him noticing that there was a destroyer near him. And so luckily for us, the torpedoes were still able to hit him a couple times. But again, there was no intention of using the smoke until I was detected. Once I was detected, that's when you use the smoke, because you don't want to be taking incoming fire as a destroyer player. So drop the smoke on the map, parked the ship, started firing, and luckily the torpedoes and the HE shells took them out. I see a lot of players using smoke right off the bat when the match starts, like within the first 10 seconds. I find this to be a waste of your consumables. I don't think it's a good play. Keep in mind, the smoke breaks line of sight for both players. So if you're the destroyer, you're most likely the most forward player on your team. So when you're spotting the enemy, if you put a smoke down, sit in the cloud, and all of a sudden you're blocking your own line of sight to them, they're not going to be able to see you, but you're not going to be able to see them either. So I don't find that to be a effective play. Here we got a teammate who's just discovered there's a radio in the game. It's hilarious. He just keeps blasting it over and over again. It's fucking hilarious. But anyway, if you can't tell, I find that to be kind of annoying. Anyway, I did have a comment on one of my other videos where I talked about the early smoke play. And the viewer did comment that he likes to put it down early to kind of put cover down for his teammates, then sail the destroyer just outside of it, so towards the enemy. That way he resumes spotting for the enemy, and then his team behind him can fire. That's a fine play. It's cool if you want to do that. Like it would work. But you can't fire from that position without being detected, so I'm an aggressive player. I like to be causing the damage myself, so I don't typically passively spot for my team just because there's no XP reward for doing so. But in terms of winning the game, it's a fine play. But other than that, I don't think smokes right off the bat are a worthwhile play, and I think people only do it because they've seen other people do it and they think that's what they're supposed to do. So again, we're making the same play we talked about earlier. Torpedoes in the water, park, firing HE shells at them, hoping to cause a fire. I thought he was going to miss these torpedoes, but he kind of turns into them, and luckily able to get a few strikes on him, and me and my teammates are able to take him off the map. So that's a common play, especially for, I don't know if it's a common play. It's a common play that I try and make in my game at least, but it's an effective play, let's put it that way. You know, get the torpedoes down, wait till they're within range where they're going to have a hard time avoiding them, then deploy the smoke, then shoot the HE at them, and again, you want the fire to be put out. Well, first you want the fire to be caused, then you want to put it out, then you want the flood to not be able to be repaired as a result of that play. So, yeah, look for opportunities to make that play whenever you can. It's one of the most effective destroyer plays in the game. Counters to smoke. The most effective counter to smoke play is to blind fire torpedoes into the cloud. So at this point in the game's life cycle, and again if you're watching this in the future, it's 2 or 3 weeks after the release, so you're able to sit in the cloud and shoot like I'm doing right now with impunity 99% of the time. As more and more players realize that the counter to someone doing what I'm doing is to blind fire torpedoes into the clouds, this is going to be more and more of a dangerous play and less likely to be effective. So ideally, if I'm doing what I'm doing right now, ideally the enemy team wants 2, 3, 4 guys firing torpedoes blindly into my cloud. And get in the habit of doing that. You'll be surprised how often you end up hitting people. But that'll make them think twice in the future once they start getting blind fired a lot. As the game's kind of meta develops, smoke's going to be mainly used to disengage, is my prediction, as more and more people start blind firing the clouds. The other counters are sonar and radar, so if you have a cruiser that has those consumables on them, you want to be helping your team out and spotting these ships that are in the clouds, the smokes, and use those sonar and radar to spot them. So here, you know, we have over 100k damage. We're just kind of padding the stats right now, but we're gonna keep making, well, I guess, yeah, we're out of smoke at this point. So all in all, I thought this is a pretty good replay of how to play smokes. So not only how to use it, but how not to use it. You know, those couple instances where we didn't want to put the smoke down. So I hope that was useful for you guys. If you did like the video, please hit the thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, well, consider subscribing. We got plenty more World of Warships coming up. And comments, questions, leave them below. I love hearing from you guys. I do want to hear if you have other ideas how to use smoke. Let us know below, because it's one of those tactics that there's a lot of creative ways to use it. And that should do it for this one. We'll see you guys all later. All right, peace.